Hey everyone, welcome back. So it is a beautiful Sunday today, and it's been the first weekend all year that has truly felt like summer. And I have a lot of things on my to-do list to get done today, so let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do today is plant out these beautiful brassicas. So when I started these in the winter, I originally started 6 different varieties of brassicas, but it looks like only 4 have actually germinated, but the 4 that have look amazing. I'm really happy with how these turned out. And as you can see, I have a little bit of a hoop structure going right now because where I live, I get flea beetles that eat my brassicas in the spring, and then cabbage worms eat them in the summertime. So I have to protect these if I want to be able to eat anything in the fall. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'll plant them out and then get my little hoop house here built so that my brassicas stay protected over the spring and summer. And I'm just going to use a frost cloth on this, and I'll show you how I do that. But first, let's start planting these brassicas out. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do is plant my farro cabbage along the front here because it's going to get quite large. And then I'll plant my broccolini, I think, in the back. And then I'll do Brussels sprouts and my broccoli over there. I think that's what I'm going to do. So to start, I have to dig some holes. So this is where my hoop is going to start. So I just want to go back a little bit from it so it's not quite in the way. And in the fall, I did till this bed. So it's, oh, there's so many worms in here. That's awesome. That's a great sign. So I tilled this bed in the fall, and then I laid all of this straw mulch that you see. And then last week, I think it was, I pulled the straw mulch off the bed to help the bed warm up a little bit. There are so many worms. That's amazing. Okay, so now I have to just gently tease apart my soil blocks here. So this is what my farro cabbage looks like. It looks pretty amazing. These are some of the best brassicas I've ever grown. I had a really good seed starting year this year for the most part. That being said, like I said, I didn't get a full tray of brassicas, but it could just be because old seed. Those 2 packages were like at least 4 years old. But the fresh seed, let me tell ya, looks amazing. So I'm just gonna plant these into the ground. Brassicas do like organic matter put into the soil if you can. And because I also fertilize these beds in the fall, I'm not too worried about fertilizer at the moment, but I am gonna side dress everything once I'm done planting. Look at that beautiful little earthworm. There's so many in here. This is awesome. It's a sign of a nice, healthy soil. This soil is still quite clayey, which is one of the issues I had last summer, but it's not as saturated as it was last year, which is nice. It's actually like workable. I always find it really hard to plan when to plant out my cold season crops where I live in Manitoba because we go from having really cool weather. For example, we had a really hard frost this week. It was like -9 overnight. And then it's 26 degrees today. It was 26 yesterday, and I think it's gonna be 28 tomorrow. So of course, if I would have planted these out on the night that we had a really heavy frost, they probably would have bounced back, but -9 is a pretty heavy frost. But they're also not gonna like this plus 26-degree weather. So I have heard that it's probably best here to start some brassicas indoors in the summer and then plant them out in the fall because our fall is cooler. And we also get more precipitation in the fall as well, so it might just be a better time to plant them out to begin with. But I always find it really hard to start things in the summertime indoors because I don't want to be inside during the summertime. I want to be outside. So maybe that's just a little mental thing that I'm gonna have to get over, because maybe I'll have more luck, and I would also have less pests if I started my brassicas in the summer and planted them out in the fall. So these are the Asperbrock broccolini, and I did grow these last year. And I will say that I did get to try like 2 florets of them, but the flea beetles actually got to them before I could for the most part, and they did some serious damage on my Asperbrock broccolini last year. So I'm hoping that I get to enjoy more of it this year since it'll be covered. Here's hoping. Just so you get an idea of what I'm doing here, I am planting them all offset a little bit so they have more room to grow out. Brassicas can get quite large, and for cabbage particularly, the more space they have, the bigger the heads will be, for the most part. So I want to give them plenty of space. And then these here are my Brussels sprouts, so I'm just going to plant them in the back row because these are going to get quite tall, and I don't want them to shadow anything else out. Oh, there's actually 3 in this one. I'll plant all 3. I don't know if all 3 will do well, but we'll see. So because it's so warm outside, my brassicas are already starting to look a little wilty and sad, so I'm gonna get some water on these ASAP. But before I do that, I wanna just top dress, or side dress I should say, with a little bit of organic fertilizer. It's a slow release fertilizer, and that'll kind of keep them going for the next couple weeks at least. And then I'm gonna cover this area after I water with some straw to help to keep the soil moist. When you're using a granular fertilizer in your side dressing, you want to make sure that you're just kind of scratching it into the soil. It helps it kind of break down a little bit quicker than if you just kind of leave it on the surface, especially if you're not covering it with mulch or anything. It tends to just stay on the surface. It doesn't break down as quickly. So then it's, of course, not available for your plant to use. So in the last little section of my brassica bed here, I'm gonna plant some toy choy, which is a little pak choy. Then I'm gonna do bok choy as well. So I'm just gonna do them at the very end here, and the idea for these ones is that I will harvest them throughout the summer. So I'll plant a bunch now, and then maybe plant a bunch in another couple weeks so that I have a consistent supply of these kind of miniature choys that I can enjoy throughout the summer. Of course, that's only if they survive the heat, of course. So I'll just do a little row. I'm not going to plant them super deep, and I'm actually going to use some of these soil blocks where the seeds didn't germinate. It's really good soil, so I might as well add it back to the garden. So I'll do the bok choy on this side. And for this one, it says to plant about 1/4 of an inch deep. So I'm just gonna plant a couple. I'm not gonna go too crazy because like I said, this is gonna be for mostly fresh eating in the summertime. And I'm gonna be constantly starting new batches, so I don't need a ton to start with. Then I'll just sprinkle this soil on top, and that should be deep enough for that. So I'll water this part in. So maybe I'll do the toi choy here, but it's actually pretty weedy here. I'm wondering maybe if it's better on the other side. I'm gonna have to kind of be constantly weeding this area. I can see all of the little seeds starting to germinate. There must have been a seed pod here. So maybe I'll do this side. And I'll do the same thing. Add some of these old soil blocks. Kind of just put them in like that. I don't have a ton of these ones left. I think I started these last summer, and because I didn't have anything covered, a lot of my brassicas just didn't grow. These seeds are so tiny. Okay, so that's the rest of that seed package. So I'll probably only be able to do this batch, but that's okay. The bok choy is so good that I don't mind doing extra batches of the bok choy. Those seeds are pretty old too, so I'm just hoping that they actually work. If not, I might have to buy some over the summer. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is just kind of cover up some of the soil around all of these brassicas just to keep the soil moist, because I have a feeling it's gonna be a pretty dry summer. This is just based on the fact that we have had very little rain in the last few weeks. So just in case my prediction is correct, I want to make sure that I'm kind of mulching the soil to keep it as moist as possible. Okay, so now I have my 4 pieces of bamboo cut. I need to grab my new tube of PVC here, and I'm not going to measure it, but I'm going to roughly make it the same size as this one. Okay, so about there. Then I'll just use a pair of scissors to cut it. And now all you need to do is take your stake and put it inside of your PVC tube. And you just want a little bit to stick out because this is what's going to stick into the ground. And you'll do that to both sides. The thing with bamboo skewers is that they tend to go narrower to wider. So it's hard to get them all even, but I'm just going to try to get this on as much as I can. And if it sticks out of the ground a little bit, that's okay. This one might be a little bit too long. Might have to just cut, or I'll see how much I can stick this into the ground first. And then all I'm gonna do is probably go here. I might need one more. I might put them closer together and then just cut a couple more bamboo stakes because I have plenty of PVC. Okay, that's good. And there you go. That's basically it. Super easy. Okay, now it's time to cover this with some frost cloth. Might be a little challenging today because it is a little bit windy, but let's see how it goes. So one trick I learned a few years ago is that if you just cut small pieces of your PVC pipe and then cut a slit through them, you almost have little clips that you can use to kind of secure your little hoop until you're able to fully have it secured. So I think that's what I'm going to try to do here. Trying to get this as even as possible. So while you watch me struggle to make my hoop house for the next few minutes, I thought I would come on here and give you an update on how this mini hoop house fared in some very windy weather that we had in the days following this video. We were having winds up to 40 to 50 kilometers an hour, so it was very windy. And overall, the mini hoop house did okay. The frost cloth came off in some parts. It never fully came off, which was good. But one of the things that I noticed was that the PVC hoops were actually swaying quite a bit in the wind. So what I ended up doing after the wind died down is I went back and I cut longer pieces of bamboo, which were probably like 2.5, maybe 3 feet long. And then I put those in the ground and then put the PVC pipe onto those. And that seemed to really make the hoop house a lot more stable. The PVC did not sway in the wind as much, and it made it a lot easier to put the frost cloth on and to secure the frost cloth. Like I said, this is going to be a little bit of a challenge with the wind today, but we'll make it work. So that took way longer than expected, and as you can see, it looks a little janky, and I'm not completely convinced that this isn't just gonna blow away on our first windy day, other than today, but it's done for now, and if I have to adjust some things in the next couple days, I will. All right, this bed here is the next task for this weekend. So this is my asparagus bed. I'll show you what they currently look like because they're just starting to come up, which is awesome. But there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's only 8 crowns of asparagus in this bed right now. And because most of them are either 2-year-old crowns or were just started last year, they're all pretty small. So there's a lot of space in this bed that I can use and fill up with other things. So that's what we're gonna do today. I'm gonna put a bunch of my cool season crops into this bed. So in terms of what I want to plant today, I have some cilantro, but I think I might do that in the strawberry bed behind me there. So I'm gonna leave this one for right now. But I have some lunar white carrots, some lettuce, some rainbow blend carrots, and some bolero carrots, and some beets. So the lunar white carrots and the bolero carrots are those really massive carrots that I grew last year. I'll add a photo here so you can see if you haven't seen my harvest video of those carrots from last year. They were massive. So I'm really hoping that by planting them again, I can get another batch of really big carrots. So yeah, all of this is gonna be planted in this one bed. And then I'll probably plant some lettuce throughout the other beds as well. But the majority of my carrots and lettuce will go into this bed. Before I start planting, I thought I would show you my asparagus. So last year I planted, I think 5 crowns, which were 2 years old, of a purple variety of asparagus. So these are starting to come up now. And then I started indoors a few plants of a green variety of asparagus. So these would only be technically their second summer, or they're only technically a year old. So these I probably won't be able to harvest anytime soon. So normally with asparagus, they say that you should only harvest it if it's about the diameter of a pencil. I don't know if any of my 2-year crowns, which will technically be them in their 3rd year this year, I don't know if any of them are gonna be the right size to harvest, but they definitely are a lot bigger than any of the other asparagus that I've had because I've never planted it early enough to actually enjoy it. So I'm hoping that there's at least 1 or 2 spears that I can enjoy this year because it's so hard waiting 3 years for asparagus. Okay, I'm gonna start off with my lunar white carrots, and I'm gonna show you my favorite way to germinate carrots because they can be a little tricky. They're one of those seeds that needs like constant moisture, which can be tough if you're living in a warmer area or an area that gets hot during the day or not enough rain. Basically, they just can be tricky for most people. So what you want to do is get an area and kind of make a little valley to plant your seeds. Carrot seeds don't need to be planted very deep. So you just want to make a little area for your seeds to come into contact with the soil, because that's going to be very important. And then all you're going to do is sprinkle some seeds within that valley. And now you don't really have to cover them up too much. You just kind of want to push them into the soil so that they have good contact with the soil. And then you just want to give them a good water. You want to be careful not to use too much pressure, because you don't want to like fling your seeds off of your soil or wash them away. But you do want to get this area very saturated. So water maybe a little bit more than you would think you need to. It's crazy how warm this water is from sitting in the hose in the sun. And then all you're going to do now is take a wooden board and put it right over where you planted your seeds. So this is going to help prevent any moisture loss. This wooden board here is going to prevent the sun from baking the soil and basically evaporating all the water out. So it'll keep the soil nice and moist for a longer period than if you just had planted your carrots normally. And in a couple days, you should actually see your carrot seeds start to germinate. Once they start to germinate, make sure to take this board off, because this will, of course, prevent your seeds from actually getting any bigger, because it's blocking out all of the light. So just make sure that you're keeping an eye on this. If you do need to water anymore, just make sure you like lift it up gently, give it another water. But for the most part, I only find that I need to water when I first start my seeds, and then by the time they germinate, the soil is still moist and I don't actually have to do it again. So I'll leave this on and we can carry on. So last year I did this variety of cilantro, and it actually did really good in my garden. I haven't had the greatest luck with cilantro if I plant it later in the season, but I think this one was one that was a little bit more heat tolerant. But I planted it out every like couple weeks, and it gave me a good supply for, I would say, at least half the summer before it got too hot. I will say I just checked the temperature and it's getting to 30 degrees next week, or that's what it says anyways. So much for planting my cold season crops this weekend when it's getting that hot that quickly. But I'll plant this cilantro now. So I was hoping to get my ranunculus into the ground today as well, but as you can see, it is super windy and it's very warm. So I think that they're just gonna wilt as soon as I put them into the ground. So I might hold off until later tonight once it cools down, but it's also gonna be super windy. So I don't know. I'm hoping to get those out in the next couple days. This is always the challenge of growing in zone 3. It can be wintry and frosting one day and then plus 30 and windy the next. So it's really hard to time when to plant things out, but